Hello and welcome to the Google Ads Strategy Show. I'm your host, Kyle Sullerud, and today I'm going to be talking with Michael Norris. Michael is the CMO at an agency called Youtech, and I don't have much more of an introduction because I want Michael to kind of talk about his company and his role there, and then we can get into more of the discussion about Google Ads. So just talking to him briefly before I started recording, he has some interesting stories, some interesting uh, some interesting industries he's working with. For example, he's working with CBD, and sounds like he's getting pretty good at navigating that gray area policy type stuff on Google. So there's a lot of things I want to get into. So I better start. So Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm very happy to be here. I'm actually a huge fan of all your content too, and I followed you for a while, so this is great for me. I'm excited.
Well, thanks a lot. So tell me about your agency. How did it start? What is your exact role there? What types of clients are you serving?
Sure. Yeah. So we started about 8 years ago in Naperville, Illinois. It's a suburb about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. And we were actually started in my CEO's parents' basement. He was 22 at the time. He was still in college, and he just incorporated the business, didn't take out any loans, anything like that. Called 100 companies a day, and eventually we made it. Now like I said, we've been in business 8 years. We're a full service digital marketing agency. We've got about 55 employees. We opened a second location in Scottsdale, Arizona about 3 years ago. So we're expanding, and we've got our sights set on a third location, but not 100% sure where it's going to be yet. So I'm not going to divulge that just yet. But yeah, that said, I mean, we're premier Google partners. So we've been doing PPC for probably about 6 years now. And, it's probably one of my favorite areas. I'm the chief marketing officer at Youtech. So I oversee pretty much all of our marketing efforts. I'm involved in high level client strategy and all that, but I used to be on the front lines when I first started. And so I've kind of grown through the ranks within the company. And with that, I've, been very technical. I've been, hands on, and now I'm a little bit more hands off. But either way, I mean, PPC is still one area that I'm very, very interested in.
So you mentioned calling 100 companies a day. Is that what initially fueled the company's growth? Is just cold calling?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty funny story. When he first started, I mean, he, like I said, working out of his parents' basement, and he had started two companies prior to this, and both of them failed. And both of those, he actually took out loans. He borrowed money from friends and family and everything too, and he lost all their money. And he didn't want that to happen again, but he was destined to be an entrepreneur. So Wilbur is his name, our CEO. He just decided, he was like, you know what, I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to do it without any kind of funding. So he had $600, incorporated the business, and he just tried really hard. I mean, he tried really hard, and obviously he's talented, and we made it today. But he would call 100 companies a day, and 97 of them would say no. And all he was doing at that time was offering $500 WordPress websites, and three would say yes though. And so that would pay the bills for a little bit more. The first employees, I think he fed them off the dollar menu at fast food restaurants for a little while. He'd give them money here and there when he could, and eventually took off a little bit, moved into an office, and then clients started asking for digital marketing services, and we started offering them as well. Like I said, today, premier Google partners. So it obviously worked out.
What are your main client acquisition channels then today? Is the company
Today,
still doing a lot of cold calling, or what are the main drivers today?
yeah, I think, well, just going off the story I told you, our story like that, our content surrounding that story gets us a lot of clients. When people hear about that, they're straight in the door. So we do have a sales team, and our sales team uses that quite a bit as they cold call and prospect. You know, I'm a big fan, a big proponent of storytelling in general. I think stories are, one of the main areas where businesses can set themselves apart in marketing, especially, doing things like PPC and all that. We're all kind of doing the same things. We all have the same levers to pull. Maybe some people are better at pulling them in other instances than some other people, but really people want to interact with other people. And we found that having a good story to back that up, and really make us feel genuine as people is something that resonates. So sales team, organic SEO gets us a lot of leads. But outside of that, just press and our story.
Cool. Yeah. And I wanted to ask about that just because a lot of my listeners are running agencies. So I like to get into that and see how other people are growing.
Mhm.
Let's get into some more specific Google Ads talk then. Um, and let's start with what I mentioned in the intro about the CBD clients that you're working with. This is an area I haven't even tried to touch it. I've
Mhm.
probably had a couple people reach out to me about it, and my response is, I'm not going to touch this. So
Sure.
you guys have gone the other way and you figured it out. So what are some things you figured out to get Google Ads working and approved for CBD related products?
Yeah, well, to start, I don't think you're alone in not wanting to do it. I think some of our team, when we first presented the clients to them, they were like, "Oh man, I don't know if this is going to fly. How are we going to do this?" It's pretty common. And at first, there were a ton of pitfalls. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we put ads together, tried to put them up there, and they would get disapproved. And then we chat support, or we'd call our Google reps, and they'd say, "Well, it's a little bit of a gray area," and it's still, to this day, it still kind of remains a gray area for us, but we have found some tips and tricks. Number one, you can't sell anything that has THC in it. That's just an absolute no-no. It doesn't matter what state you're in, it's federally illegal, so that's not going to fly. If you put THC in anything, you won't be able to do it, period. CBD is kind of the same. I know CBD I think it's technically considered federally illegal, but it's still not allowed on Google Ads at all. And so what we found that works is replacing the word CBD with hemp. And we do that in our ad copy. We do that on our landing pages, on our products. In some instances, we've even created complete mirror websites for our clients. So for instance, they have one website that's their main website, and it's got CBD in the domain. It's got CBD in their brand name, CBD all down the page, CBD on the product pages. And we use that for SEO. That one's indexed and everything. Then on the flip side, for ads, we run a completely mirrored site, replace the word CBD with hemp everywhere on that site, and we no index that site so that it can't be found in search engines, so the two aren't competing in terms of SEO. And we'll run all of our ads to the hemp site, and that surprisingly works. We've kind of found that it seems like Google will crawl two levels deep into your product pages. So you might not have to create an entire separate website, but it's just so much easier on the user experience to have them not, clicking so many multiple times to get to your product pages. So if you can, just on your main landing pages, and then all the links in your nav, if you have the nav on your landing pages, those, anything that Google can just trace through two levels, you need to remove all mentions of CBD. The other thing too is that you cannot sell any kind of ingestible product on Google Ads, even if you say hemp. So it has to be topical products only. Otherwise, you're going to get disapproved. Topical products meaning, use them on your skin, lotions, muscle salve, hand and foot cream, lip balm, all that kind of stuff is okay. But if you're trying for gummies, which unfortunately gummies are one of the best selling things, that's going to be difficult. You're not going to be able to do it in Google Ads. If you do get it through, it's likely going to be disapproved at some point. So I wouldn't bank on it as a long-term strategy. But that said, I mean, we've had various campaigns approved for weeks at a time that worked. And, they said things like CBD. We were selling ingestibles, but eventually the automated filter caught up to us, and we had to back up on that. So we've tried so many different things. I can't even tell you. I mean, we've tried dozens of different ways, and the combo we found: ingestible products, saying hemp in place of CBD.
Okay, interesting. So you're not cloaking anything. You're not really being deceptive. You're just cutting back how you would normally describe the product, and you're just describing it as hemp, and that seems to be working.
Mm-hmm.
At least for now, until Google's policy team watches this episode.
Yeah. Maybe this is bad for me. I don't know.
But no, that's interesting. So I guess I know where to direct people from now on if they're interested in that.
Mhm.
Um, what other types of clients do you work with a lot, and can you talk about?
We're pretty big into HVAC. We've worked with some mom and pop shop HVAC clients all the way to big holding companies that own a ton of different HVAC brands. So that's one area I would say. We're also strangely into senior living. I think that's another big one. But really, we have no particular verticals. We're kind of everywhere. But I would say definitely HVAC, home services, plumbing, and then senior living.
Okay. When you submitted your interest in being on the show, which, by the way, anyone listening, if you're interested in being a guest on the show, just go to googleadsstrategy.com. There's a link at the bottom of the site where you can send me your information, and I'll look and see if you have anything interesting that we can talk about on the show. So, Michael, you'd mentioned a story you could tell about an HVAC client.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear all about this HVAC client story.
Yeah, well, the main thing that we've learned through the years, just talking to our Google partner team, is that you want to let the automated bidding strategies do their thing if you're using automation. And I know there's some conflicting schools of thought on that, but we tend to use automated bidding. We find that it generally works pretty well. And this HVAC client we had, uh, they did not want to run their ads on any particular schedule whatsoever. So what they would do, and it was even nights and weekends. I mean, it didn't matter. They had no boundaries. They would just text us when they wanted the ads turned on. They'd tell us at what budget they wanted the ads on, how much they wanted to spend that day, and then later in the day, it might be 2, 3 o'clock. They would tell us, "Okay, turn the ads off. We're too busy." And I can't tell you. I mean, we tried to have conversations with these people of, well, number one, I mean, it was a little bit of an invasion of privacy. I mean, Saturday morning at 6 a.m., you don't want to be waking up and turning ads on. So, our team's got the Google Ads app on their phone and everything. We're flipping the ads on and off, changing budgets. Um, but number two, it didn't really let the automation do its thing because, it was just on and off at all times. It wasn't really collecting data at specific times of day or specific budgets. The budgets were always shifting. So it was just consistently in a learning phase. So eventually we turned off the automated bidding. And we went with manual, and they wanted to just bid. They wanted to be number one all the time, no matter what. So we just jacked it up. And surprisingly, the strategy worked. And it wasn't the most conventional thing that we've ever done by any means. But them showing at the top for emergency HVAC terms was the key to success. And I mean, I think eventually they shut down because they made so much money. It was a small shop. I think there was the owner. He had his receptionist, and then he had probably 3 or 4 service techs, and all they did was emergency stuff. And apparently they were really good salesmen too. So they texted us one day, and then eventually, we got on some calls. We tried to retain him as a client, but they shut down the business, and they moved to Vegas. And that was the last we ever heard of him. So he said, "Thank you. We made so much money. We're done. We're out of the business here." But yeah, it worked.
Did he sell the business or just close it down?
Good question, actually. I think, we asked him about it, and he said he was going to keep it running for a while, and he was going to have some other guy manage it, but he just wasn't going to do really anything anymore. And then last I saw, they weren't around anymore. So I don't know exactly what happened.
All right. Well, hopefully he survived in Vegas with all that money.
Yeah, it must be tough.
um, so did that experience of getting contacted by this customer at all hours of the night, does that still happen? Have you changed anything about how you communicate with your clients as a result of that, or maybe since then, that you could share?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were small at that time, and they were a big client. I mean, they had big budgets and stuff too. So we wanted to make them happy. And myself and one other employee, we kind of volunteered to be on that front of, this is what they want. We'll do this. We'll make them happy. At the time, we were single. We were young in our 20s. We weren't. It was okay. We were okay with doing it. But now that we're bigger, I would never subject our employees to anything like that. So we do have boundaries. We do still, we allow our clients to text us, but it's not a mandated thing. It's more If you're a project manager and you want your clients to text you, you give them your cell, you tell them that they can text you. But other than that, I mean, typically there's not a ton of conversation to be had on weekends. Our clients don't want to work weekends for the most part either. So that was sort of a one-off instance.
Yeah. Let's one other thing you mentioned ahead of the show was what you're doing with Google Shopping campaigns, and smart shopping campaigns specifically. So talk about that.
Yeah, at first when smart shopping first came out, we like to try new things. Number one, so we'll go to our clients and we'll say to them, "Hey, there's this new feature out. We're not entirely sure how it's going to work, to be honest with you, but our Google reps say it's great. Here's how it works. Here's what the results we believe we're going to see from something like this, and we'd love to have a little bit of budget to give it a shot." And that's typically the kind of conversation we have with something like that. And they, a variety of them said yes. And for most of them, I'll tell you what, man, we could not get them to spend money initially. We couldn't. We were running regular shopping campaigns, and those were doing great. And then the smart shopping, it would be, we'd be 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and just no impressions, no spend. And we're trying to figure out what's going on. And eventually, we got them running. I can't even remember exactly what the issue was, but I think just generally speaking, we had too low of a cost per click or something like that. But we got them running, and over time, I'm so sorry. Over time, we came to discover that they're amazing. And I'm not a huge proponent of smart anything campaigns because they take everything away from you. There are no levers to pull really. You upload the assets and they kind of just go, and they're showing everywhere, and you can't control where they're showing, and you don't even really know where they're showing. You can't even put negative keywords in or anything like that to control where they're showing. We did find a loophole with that, by the way. We could email our Google rep and they'll upload a list of negative keywords. But outside of that, we have no control over them. But strangely enough, the automation works. I'm a big proponent of automation, like I said, and we've seen, in some places we've had shopping campaigns running for clients for years, and they were just so well tuned. I mean, I don't think there was very minimal changes that we could have made to do any better. And these smart shopping campaigns started outperforming them in a period of 1 to 2 months. And now we'll still run the shopping campaigns, and we like them, and we like the control that it gives us. Don't get me wrong, but the smart shopping campaigns are just kind of blowing them out of the water. So it's almost scary as an agency. Yeah, you want it to be a little bit more difficult so that mom and pop shops can't just jump in and start running ads and do better than you. But we've seen them do great.
Have you found any certain budget needs to be spent, or any certain frequency of sales need to be coming in for the smart shopping campaigns to actually work?
That's a good question. I would say when we first started, our budgets were probably too small. We were probably looking at, in some cases, I think we wanted to test with like $1,000 or $2,000 a month as a budget, and they definitely work better with a higher budget. It depends on your bidding strategy too. So I think there are 2 options available, and I might be wrong. I think there's target CPA and max conversions. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's the 2. And you want your target CPA to be at least 10. You want your daily budget to be 10 times higher than whatever your target CPA is kind of the general rule that we've come to work with. So once we figured that ratio out, things got a lot better for us.
Okay. Yeah. And I like to get that perspective because I've had people on the show that say never use smart shopping campaigns. I've probably said the same thing myself. But I'm also of the opinion that things are constantly changing in Google Ads. And there's some black and white, but on these bigger issues, there's not necessarily always black and white.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think the automation too has gotten better over the years. I think when we first started trying some of these automated strategies, some of the manual stuff we were doing was just outright better. And now we find that we can try to manually do these things that maybe the automation is just getting better over time. I'm not sure, but we found that it works.
Yeah, for me, a couple of years ago, I never would have used target CPA bidding. And most of my campaigns are lead generation, not shopping. Uh, Within the last couple of years, though, that's really changed, and now I am really utilizing smart bidding on YouTube ads, which I'm more into now. There's no question that target CPA bidding is the only way.
Mhm.
Cost per view bidding, there's no way that it's ever going to outperform CPA bidding. So things like that are definitely evolving. I was very skeptical 2-3 years ago, and when some people were starting to talk about how good this stuff is working, I still couldn't get it to work. I could see the future in it, though. Obviously, computers
Yeah.
can learn pretty quickly, and that's exactly what's happened over the last couple of years. They have learned these automated bidding strategies are really getting to where they need to be. And like you said, it can be frightening for an agency to give up that control and wonder
Mhm.
why am I still here? But I think there's
Yeah.
still plenty an agency can offer. It's not just letting the computer do all the work. It's having a smart person behind that computer and guiding it to do its best job. So
Yeah.
however much the AI is going to help us, I don't think it's ever going to take over. I think we're always going to be needed. But at the same time, it can also help a small business who isn't going to hire an agency and they're
Mhm.
trying to do it themselves. The automations are probably going to help them too.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, actually, and you bring up a good point in that no automation or machine right now can tell you what strategy you should be employing for your advertising. You need a human behind that who can kind of mesh everything together, and an agency especially has that type of experience. But in terms of just dialing everything in, I think that's the area where the automation continues to excel. But we like to tell clients that we're a strategic partner. We're in it for the long haul. Are we the greatest ever at using the Google Ads tool out of every agency that exists in the US? I highly doubt we are. Truthfully, I really highly doubt we are. But are we a great strategic partner who's going to learn everything about your business, grow with you, understand your business goals, your objectives, what you're trying to do in the next year or 2 years, 3 years, and employ a strategy that's going to help get you there? Absolutely. So that's the route we take.
Now, you were pretty thorough when you gave me some content ideas for this show, which is why we're talking, because I knew we'd have plenty to talk about. So I think the last thing I wanted to touch on from what you had mentioned ahead of time was basically what you're doing with conversions and how you
Mm,
feel like your agency really has a good handle on tracking conversions um, accurately and
mhm.
truthfully. Take me through that process for you and kind of what that looks like from your perspective and how that helps you and your clients.
Yeah, I we so to start, I have my view of what other agencies are doing for conversion tracking is basically it's been formed by the clients we inherit from other agencies, and they explain to us. Number one, we get access to their Google Ads account. We can see how things are tracking in there. Number two, they'll tell us, oh, well, we use this call tracking platform, or these are how our analytics are set up. And I can't tell you how many times either the tracking is just extremely poor, they're not tracking conversions very well at all. Maybe they're just tracking form fills, but not phone calls. In some instances, on e-commerce websites, we'll see that purchases are being double counted, triple counted, and maybe analytics is set up correctly, but ads isn't, or ads is set up correctly and analytics isn't. So that's what has formed my opinion on this, and I think we do an extremely good job with this. So let's say we get a new client, whether it's lead generation or e-commerce, we'll take a look at all their goals and everything. I'll talk more on the lead generation part for this because I think it's more applicable. But the main things that we want to count for clients, generally speaking, are going to be form fills and phone calls. And for the majority of our clients, that's how they generate their leads. So with form fills, it's pretty easy. I mean, we'll use thank you pages for the most part. We've begun in more recent years consolidating everything into Google Tag Manager so as not to slow down the page or anything with all kinds of different tracking tools, especially if we're running ads on other various platforms and stuff too. They all have their own pixels and everything. So we'll put in Google Tag Manager and we'll just consolidate everything in that. And we'll do event tracking, button tracking. With that, we'll also employ CallRail, which is a tracking service that we use. I don't know if you're familiar. I think they're pretty decently
That's the
big.
one I recommend.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll use CallRail, and they're awesome. I mean, I've even been to one of their conferences, and I had a great time there. Learned a lot too. So we employ that, and we'll count all calls over. Usually, we check this out with the client first, but all calls over 1 minute generally, we will begin counting as a conversion. If it's less than 1 minute, maybe they hung up, maybe they had the wrong number, maybe they had the wrong business, maybe they just weren't a good lead. So we'll track 1 minute or up, and unless the client says, let's go 2 minutes, let's go 3 minutes, and we'll change it like that. But the unique thing that we do, I think this is where we start to divulge from the normal pack, is that all of our leads, whether it be through CallRail, form fills, anything like that, gets shot into a Zapier, using Zapier into a Google Sheet for the client, unless they have a CRM, in which case we'll just integrate directly with their CRM. And in some cases, we've set up HubSpot CRMs because they're free for our clients too. But generally speaking, the sheet is the way that we go. Dump everything into a Google Sheet. The client gets their name, their phone number, their email, any other information. If they filled out any other form fields there, they get all that. And we have our project managers who, every client at Youtech gets a project manager. We'll have them set up regular meetings with the client where they'll sit down and they'll go through each individual lead, and they'll say, okay, here's John Smith. Did he close? Oh, he did. Okay. Or he's still coming back in. Okay, we'll put him on a list for later. And basically they look at everything that closed and the amount of revenue that it drove. And at the end of the day, we'll compare our spend to the amount of revenue, and it usually paints a pretty picture right there. The one problem that we run into, obviously, is getting clients to sit down and divulge that information regularly. That has been the biggest challenge, is because we rely on the client so much to do something like that with those matchback reports that, some clients, they just fall off or they don't want to do it, or we're doing so well that they just don't even really care. And then, months down the line, they'll come back and they'll be like, oh, results aren't good. And it's like, well, we didn't know because we're getting you all these leads. We don't know if they're not turning into anything. So that has been a challenge, but we've sorted it out with our project managers, and they're strong on it. And it's a big piece of what we bring to the game, I think.
Are you in any way, like, once a client says, yeah, this is a good lead, or this is now a customer, are you feeding that information back into the ad accounts at all? Or is it more just for looking at the big picture of what you're bringing in for the customer?
A little bit of both. So in some cases, depending on the client's budget, it's not big enough for us to feed it back into Google Ads. It's just, there's not enough data for us to do it really. But in other cases, yes, we are. And, again, with the automated algorithms, the more data points you give it, the better job they do. So yes, we have seen some good success with that too.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Any other stories you want to tell, or anything I should have asked you but didn't?
The only other thing I will say, and I'd hope to maybe generate a conversation around this, is a big challenge for us and for me as a chief marketing officer is I don't want my teams operating like the Wild West, where like I said, when we were small, different people were managing different ad accounts. They might each have their own different ways of doing them, and they're different flavors, or someone's tracking things one way, someone's tracking things another way. So we've tried to standardize everything across the board, and I think we've done a very good job of that. But there are certain things with pay-per-click advertising that are very difficult, I think, to standardize. At one point we had a strategy where it was like every Monday you're gonna look at negative keywords. Every Tuesday you're going to revise your ad extensions. Every Wednesday, and so on and so forth. And, that didn't really work out that well because not every account is the same. And, you need a certain amount of data before you can, change your ads up. You don't want to change your ads up every Wednesday just because it's Wednesday. So we've I would say we had challenges with that. And we moved from doing those kind of things every day to every other week in most cases. And then we found that we had to have an even more custom approach than that. So I'm curious if you, Kyle, have any input on something like that. I know it might not be the same situation with you, but that's something that we've had a challenge with all the time.
Yeah. So really, I've been in the position where I haven't, so intentionally, I haven't grown my clientele beyond what I can put my hands on myself. Um, I haven't put someone else completely in charge of an account. So that obviously limits things to what I can do and what I can be involved in. Now, though, more recently, I'm focusing more on YouTube ads. And this is something that has been growing pretty rapidly to the point now where I'm working on really systemizing what I know so that other people can follow my systems without having to plug into, my brain somehow. And in trying to teach people how to do certain things when it comes to optimizing YouTube accounts, I found myself saying, like, there's not really a formula for this. It's kind of like you need to take these things into an account, and this is how I would do it. But there's not really a formula.
Sure.
Once I started saying that, I started thinking, well, maybe there is a formula and I just haven't written it down. Maybe I need to actually work out formulas for these things. So that's what I've started doing to build into my processes. And also now working on building out some software internally that is basically going to take, generally how I've looked at the data and how I've adjusted things within a campaign. It's going to formulaically make those recommendations for what to adjust. That's where I'm headed.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So that's, you can hire really good people and let them run with it. That's really hard to do, I think. I think if you have an agency that's delivering good results because of whatever reason, because you have a founder who worked out a system, or sometimes maybe you're just focused on a really specific niche. You're just doing HVAC and you've really been able to work out a system for HVAC companies that's mostly plug and play. Those types of things enable companies to grow and scale quickly without a lot of room for error. So that's what I'm looking at doing and working on now with what I'm doing with YouTube ads, because there really aren't a lot of people I can hire. I've stumbled into a really niche category here where there aren't many people who are able to kind of do what I'm doing with YouTube ads. And I recognize that. That's why I'm trying to take what's in my head and work it out mathematically. And of course, there's always going to be room for interpretation. So you need good people for that, but you can't always hire experts. Most of the best experts are not looking for a job. They're looking for clients, or they're looking for their own employees.
Yeah, well said.
So I'm trying to turn people into experts by being able to plug into the systems that I'm building.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. And maybe that's the way we should look at it as well, as sort of a formula, or almost like a workflow of some sort. Look at this first, then look at this. We've considered doing something like that, but I love that input. Thank you.
Yeah, like you mentioned, every week there might not be enough data to change your ads. Well, figure out what is enough data. At what point is there enough data, based on ad spend or based on clicks or whatever. Figure out how to somehow be alerted of that point in time when there's now enough data. Okay, now this is what you want to look at. something to think
That's
about.
excellent.
You could
Yeah,
probably
that's honestly
put
excellent.
someone in charge of that, just tracking the numbers daily. Once a certain criteria is met, now the account manager goes in and addresses that particular thing. So there's always systems you can put behind that, especially when it comes to just telling you what to pay attention to, so that you're not looking at the same thing every day. And when in reality, that thing really only can be looked at every month. Otherwise, there's not enough data to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So when that month happens, now you look at it. But maybe that's not every month. Maybe it's just every 1,000 clicks. So how do you get notified when 1,000 clicks have happened? Well, maybe you could set up some software for that, or maybe you just have a person that's tracking that, and then they're notifying the correct person.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Honestly, that makes a ton of sense. And honestly, I'm glad we had this conversation, because I think that's something I really need to look into.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for that question. It's definitely interesting for me to think about and verbalize, and I guess kind of give people an inside peek of how I think about some of this stuff. It's interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it was valuable.
So again, I've been talking with Michael Norris from Youtech, and the website is youtechagency.com. Is there anywhere else people should go if they want to get a hold of you or learn more about you?
No, I think the website is a pretty good place. From there, you can get a pretty good snapshot of our company, check out all the services, everything we have to offer. My picture's up there, and a bunch of places too, so you'll be able to spot me, and we can start a conversation. So thanks.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
This has been the Google Ads Strategy Show. Again, my name is Kyle Sellerud, and I will talk to you later.
Thanks, everybody.